It's not going to do any good for me to tell you to stop overthinking. I could tell you that all day long and nothing's going to change because you're always thinking. But there is something you can do to catch yourself in a cycle of unproductive thought and start turning your thoughts around when they're moving in the wrong direction. The first step in that process is to catch yourself when you're going down a mental rabbit hole. And your body starts sending some pretty clear signals to your brain about whether your thoughts are productive or not through your emotions. Emotion and thought are very closely connected. All your thoughts are stirring a physical reaction, even if it's subtle, and especially if it's obvious. So your nervous system sends a message to your brain that comes through as an emotional signal. Identifying the information that's coming from the emotion is something that we've already covered pretty thoroughly, and I'll include that link. But in short, once you can identify the feeling that's trying to get your attention, you'll know whether your thoughts are dragging you down or trying to lead you to something that you really need to know. And catching yourself in an unproductive pattern of thought is how you stop actively thinking. I know that's not always as easy as it sounds, but just that flash of awareness will press the pause button just for a second, just long enough to get curious about what's happening in your head. And I just said that you're always thinking, and that's true. You can't really stop the thinking, but you can stop to listen to what you're thinking and who's doing the talking. Because there is a voice in your head that's always talking. It's almost like there's another person in there talking sometimes, but it's actually just different versions of you at different times. And this is all very normal and completely unconscious and unnoticed most of the time for most people. As some parts of you are very closely related to different roles that you play in different areas of your life. Some come up in relationship to certain events from the past, and some are highly influenced by other people. And that's the part of you that latched on to whatever they said, almost always adding on to whatever they said in a very similar tone, sometimes as helpful reminders, but very often with counterproductive and sometimes truly harmful thoughts attached to them. Some of those voices are attached to specific experiences that bring up what we would probably call negative emotions that lead to some pretty dark places. But there are voices in there that send out good feelings that lead to happy places and things that you love or want to have or know or grow. And you want to start listening for that too. You can learn to recognize all of them pretty quickly with just a little bit of practice. Getting curious about which part of you is doing the talking is a cure to overthinking. Just that moment of curiosity will start moving the train of thought in a new direction. And just because it's interesting, every pattern of thought in your head comes with a slightly different tone. And some of those versions of you are caught up in cycles of pain. Some just caught up in making plans. Some of them are stuck in the past, and some of them are looking into the future. And almost all of them are deeply wrapped up in the mental processing that comes from the ego. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because the ego serves a very important purpose. It's there to protect you and to help you navigate reality. So it's always in there working. But the ego doesn't know that we aren't living in caves anymore or constantly running away from an immediate threat. So it keeps feeding us a whole bunch of stories that are looking back into the past, trying to keep us tied to something that feels safe. But no matter how well intentioned, sometimes the ego is a liar. It's not trying to hurt you, it's just doing its job, performing the executive function. It really is in charge most of the time, and it just keeps feeding you more dramatic examples of the subject matter that you've been stirring because that's what it thinks you need. And we're all hardwired to listen to what the ego has to say, even when it's dragging us off in the wrong direction. That's autopilot. And so many of those voices and thoughts that we might consider negative or unproductive fall into that category of thought. Conscious, but not necessarily productive or true in this moment. It's like there's a great big room filled with file cabinets in your head, and the ego is just the program running in the background that's digging through the files and giving you more food for thought. That's the executive function. That's its purpose. It just keeps offering a never-ending stream of advice from those different versions of you, almost always stuck in the past or worrying about the future, sending out the alarm to think more about how to avoid discomfort. The ego isn't paying much attention to what you really want or even to what you actually need to feel happy and fulfilled. Even though it's trying to keep you safe, sometimes what it's serving up is pain. And the emotional reaction is just getting you ready to do whatever you need to do to pull you away from anything that it might consider painful and keep you in that often false sense of safety. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That's normal. That's just the way we were made. And unfortunately, sometimes that survival instinct gets carried away and goes too far. And that's why it's so easy to get lost in your thoughts. But if you pay attention when that emotional alarm goes off and listen up, the mental process can take a pretty sharp turn for the better. Identifying the emotions that are getting stirred up and getting curious about the tone of thought will press the pause button on active thinking. Just for long enough to recognize the voice that's doing the talking right now and the information that particular voice is offering. And then you have a chance to ask yourself whether that information is useful or not. And if it is, you have something to study, and we will talk about how to do that next time. But if it's not useful, if it's not really true in this moment, the conversation in your head on that topic will almost automatically start to die down. And the landscape of your inner world opens up, at least a little bit. And the only thing that really changed there is a shift in perspective and a growing awareness of what's actually happening in your head. That awareness opens the door to inspired thought. And this is a completely different voice and a very different part of you in a totally different category with an entirely different tone. This is all information that's coming from the truest version of you. And it's in a different room in your head with even more file cabinets. But since the ego is the one who's usually running the mental show, most people don't spend a whole lot of time in this room listening to this voice that comes from the real you. You usually have to go looking for it and listen a little longer to hear it clearly, because it usually doesn't yell and it isn't in there trying to pull you away from anything. It knows that everything you think and feel has something to teach you. So it's just patiently waiting for you to learn whatever you need to learn and come looking for it. And I will say that sometimes that voice does very suddenly offer information that comes from out of nowhere. And you can usually recognize that right away. Even though it's not yelling, it usually does come with a whole lot of authority. And when you're in the middle of one of those moments, you know that the voice you're hearing is telling the truth. And that usually stirs a pretty strong, steady emotion. And I'm not saying that it won't be uncomfortable. That kind of sudden realization is usually intense. Those are thoughts that stop you in your tracks, but there's no need for overthinking because all of a sudden you just know that you know what you need to know and you could feel it. So the problem isn't really overthinking. The problem is not paying attention to which version of you is doing the talking. Which part of you is running the mental show right now and doing all that talking in your head? The real work here is to make just a little bit of space between you and your thoughts. The real you starts running the show when you remove yourself from that internal conversation just long enough to hear what's happening in there. Almost like you're listening to another person speak or like you're listening to someone else's conversation. Most people don't have any difficulty identifying the tone of someone else's conversation. It's usually really easy to identify someone who's talking in circles or telling a lie or feeling sorry for themselves or being defensive or blaming someone else for their problems or making their own problems. You can usually tell the difference between noise and truth when someone else is talking. But when it's you and nobody else can hear because it's all happening in your head, that's where we get stuck in the pattern or caught in a loop because you can't walk away from that conversation physically. It's going on all the time. And whether you're going on and on about the same topic for way too long or flying around from subject to subject or even outright lying to yourself, there's nobody else there to stop you or call you out. That's something that you have to learn to do for yourself. Next time, I'm going to give you some really practical tools for emptying out some of those old file cabinets in your head and making meaningful plans for lasting change.